So, hello and welcome to the New Gig podcast. I'm your host, Glenn Hodgson, and today I'm delighted to be joined by healthcare professional Roosi Verendel. How are you doing, Roosi?
Good morning, Glenn. Thank you for having me on the podcast. I'm fine. I hope you are too.
Yes, I'm doing very well. Now, please, could you just give us a little bit of background on yourself and also the sector that you're working in?
I am a general practitioner and a medical advisor. I'm also an inspector in general medicine. I'm working in healthcare.
Excellent, excellent. And given the sort of developments that we've had within the healthcare sector, we've had issues of people sort of leaving, difficult working conditions, difficult working practices, a lack of flexibility. For yourself as a medical practitioner within the community who sees a lot of these stories from the inside, could you give us a little bit of an overview of what's happening from an employment and an individual perspective of how they're dealing with the profession and the sector right now?
Yes, there are actually very many views, and that means that there are also very many issues to address. In conclusion, it's just as you mentioned, there are very many working conditions that would need to be addressed for a modern work life in 2024, because I think that we need to also look forward, what's coming onwards, not and to be able to better prepare for that, we need to address the issues of today in a more concrete way, because the healthcare sector is going through a crisis. It's not just in Sweden, we are talking in Europe. I have also colleagues I recently talked to in the States. The issues of worsening working conditions for healthcare professionals should, according to my opinion, be our number one priority to address, because if we do not make an effort to make the working conditions better for healthcare professionals, the only thing we're going to see is a huge turnaround. And more people falling sick, more and more people not necessarily falling sick, but choosing to leave healthcare. And that means that, for example, many persons of all those we are educating, take Sweden, for example. If a medical student chooses to go into residency, in total, a medical student studies for 6 years, then goes into residency for 5 years more in total. And usually people maybe have some leave during the residency, because this is also in a life, in an age where people usually, for example, develop also their private life, their families, maybe live abroad for some time, and so on. So the residency is not only 5 years exactly, but it can take 6 or 7 years even for people who are, for example, on a child leave for some time, and in total. So the education in total takes approximately, well, let's say 12 years. I think it should be given more thought, that what happens to a country's economy if persons who are studying for so long, we are as a country investing in their education, and then they leave the profession. Or at least they are not working for the country. Have we invested our money as a country in a good way, because, and I'm bringing this up because what we see is that these numbers are actually rising. Those healthcare professionals that are choosing to leave healthcare are on the rise, and this is a warning sign, and this shouldn't be neglected, and it shouldn't be also camouflaged by that. We say that yes, okay, if we have a lack of HCPs, healthcare professionals, then we can just educate more. But the answer is not to educate more only. I think it should also be, as I said, more concretely addressed. Why are these persons leaving, and is it anything we can do to keep them in healthcare?
Exactly. And why are they leaving, Rosie? What are the trends that we're seeing at the moment? What are the reasons for this exodus from the sector?
I would say that the absolutely most common reason is lack of leadership, lack of which leads to worsening working conditions. Which itself leads to, as you mentioned, lack of flexibility, high turnover in all sectors, and also, of course, not to talk about the individual HCP who might be affected from a high amount of stress, and as we have on the rise, burning out among HCPs. And the thing is that it's 2024. We all know burnout is preventable in most cases. And it shouldn't be work. It shouldn't be an occupational disease. It should absolutely not be a disease you can actually achieve from work, as it is preventable. It's really not a modern issue. And we need to address the cause, which is very often found in the working conditions. And those are set and organized by the employer. And the employer, so that means that the leadership part must have much more attention and must be put under question. Is this really bringing health to our employees, or is it actually making their health worse?
And is this and Rosie, is this an element of flexibility in terms of having more choice over when and how the healthcare professionals work, having more choice over their schedule, or is it also more flexibility in terms of full-time employees, bringing in part-time employees, having more of a structure of your work style and an openness amongst the leadership to be able to understand what is best for the individual as a healthcare professional?
Yes, I read recently actually that the model of working 40 hours a week, it can be traced over 100 years ago, back in time. That's when we set this model, and we have continued to have it. But the thing is that the society has evolved. We have better technology. We have other societal challenges we are facing, and there is. But medicine is a traditional hierarchy, I would say, because we do have specific things that we are continuing to carry throughout generations in medicine. And we are not actually adapting the working conditions so much as for today's needs. As you mentioned, it can be anything from is it really reasonable that people should work full-time? during periods in life where there is a high demand of also being present in some home issues. For example, if there is a sick partner, or if there is are small children, and so on. Society gives, at least in Sweden, we have kind of good working conditions, but I am asking really for more flexible working options for healthcare professionals. Change of schedule for a certain time, change of working hours, the possibility to work full-time or half-time or part-time, because healthcare professionals are really, really, really focused on their work. We all want to do our best, but sometimes during life there can be issues that affects us, and we're just humans. I mean, we are just as everybody else that might, during a certain time of life, need some kind of adjustment, and it can be a bit rigid in healthcare. Sorry, I'm just going to take some water.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it can be quite rigid, and I think this thing is the ability is there, as you say, in terms of the technology and the applications that can actually facilitate this. But of course, we get back to leadership, and there needs to be this mindset shift as well, to be open to the opportunities of allowing the technology to be there, to assist and be able to make things better. Without that element and this resistance, then we're going to be stuck in a 1950s labor market, and people are just going to leave because they'll see more opportunities elsewhere.
Yeah, this is the thing that I see that today's employers, they are not actually prepared for the employees of today. There is a mismatch, actually, because we see generation X, Y, Z, and coming generations. They might not have this view as previous generations have had, that they necessarily want to work full-time from when they go out from medical school until they go into retirement. Maybe they want to have other work-life conditions. And I'm not just saying maybe, I'm quite sure that this is actually how the future will look like in medicine, also in medicine. And that's why I urge and I kindly ask employers to more take into account that employees will want more freedom to more personally affect their work life. They will want to have a dialogue with their employer, and that means that the employer should prepare for this. Yes. And as I say, it can be anything from maybe, I don't know, starting 1 hour later because the kindergarten is not open, or finishing one hour previously because at certain days, because maybe someone needs to go and make a pickup at of course, kindergarten, and so and that is usually granted for certain professionals, but sometimes I do see that it's not so friendly looked, for example, in surgical specialties, if there is a doctor who needs to leave early, because then you are seen as you are not so dedicated to your profession. Then you are dedicated to your private life, and that actually causes huge ethical stress for the doctor. And I believe that this is maybe not the only, but this is one of the causes we are seeing huge stress in doctors, because there is we have chosen our profession. We want we only want to help. everyone and everywhere, but we would wish to also come out as ourselves in whole, and that means it would be a necessity if employers would also take into account that they should not put doctors in huge ethical stress due to some needs for flexibility during certain times of the work life. That should be very, very normalized in 2024 and onwards.
And why? Where does that reluctance to see the reality? And I think that you raise a good point there, Rosie, about the fact that we're not going to be able to attract people into the profession, which is something where the needs is just rising all the time in terms of healthcare professionals, from surgeons, medical practitioners, doctors, but also nurses and care staff. There's a growing need, but we've got conditions which are actually making it more complicated and are scaring people off from entering the profession.
Yes, and scaring people away from the profession, maybe.
Yeah.
The reluctance and the conditions, you mentioned it so wisely. I really believe that the number one point that needs to be addressed is the medical leadership. And I come back to this all the time, because the leadership is the one that puts the conditions. So they are in charge of the conditions. So that means if we want better conditions for healthcare professionals or any other profession also, we need to look as number one, not at a single employee somewhere peripheral within the organization, but we must look who is in charge, because that person will have the highest impact on the single employee's health. I have worked several years within occupational medicine. I have rehabilitated hundreds, I would say almost thousands of persons from burnout coming back to work life. And I have a special method I use, and I would say, I would even sit here and say I'm extremely proud of my patients I have had the honor to help, because they have all gone through the same thing, in terms that we have come to the conclusion that we can work on the single patient. I can coach the patient what he or she can think about and what to do, what not to do, and so on. But in my method, I always also work with the employer. And that's what actually, I would say that is the key factor that changes the whole environment for the patient. Because when I rehabilitate my patient, as I said, I put a lot of focus also on the leadership that is guiding the patient, because that means that they will be with the patient on the journey. They will also change the settings that the patient is entering when he or she comes back after the episode, and how and that is actually what makes the whole change, because my patients are never going back to where they fell sick. They're always going forward. They're always entering a total new setting where the direct boss or leader is concretely walking beside the patient, making sure that the conditions for this person to re-enter into work life is optional. And I think that that's where the key is. It's so simple, but that's where the force is, to integrate those who are in charge. And not just because a person who has suffered from burnout can seriously enter all kinds of meditations or yoga classes. I really like those too, but that will not decide what the patient is meeting in forms of demands at work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's the demands that will actually decide how will the patient concur and survive. We need, and in Sweden in general, I would say that the preparedness for different things, it goes down to everything from individual employees to societally. We have regions in Sweden, how the regions are working with preparedness, lack of staff, or preparedness, for example, when it comes to emergencies and wars. We have 21 regions. We have only 3 of them have an emergency plan. So in Sweden now, I really hope that by entering the NATO, Sweden will put much more effort into being better prepared, because also healthcare needs to be better prepared for different scenarios. The Swedish Medical Society is also trying to start raising awareness regarding this, because this is not something just made by healthcare professionals. This needs involvement of politicians and all persons who are working in a region. It's actually those who are in charge of the region that needs to much more work on these issues. Also, speaking about the regions, our Minister of Health just recently this week, the news came out this week, but she said it actually a few weeks back, Akko Ankarberg. She has also said, for example, that the lack of healthcare professionals is an issue that should be addressed by the regions in Sweden.
Yeah.
And this is, and then we can ask ourselves, how can we, anyone interested in health, how can we actually make sure and maybe help the regions to work on not having a lack of staff?
Yeah.
Because if she puts it in this way, it means actually that those who are in the boards of the regions, they are actually the ones who are in charge of the healthcare professionals.
Yeah, and I mean, the key thing here, Roosi, is it all goes back to leadership. And, as the Italians say, a fish rots from the head. And I think without the right leadership structures or people in place, it's going to be very, very difficult to have the right environment for people to be happy, to feel encouraged and feel empowered to be able to do what they need to do. So this is I think it's very important points, and fantastic that you were able to share these from a personal but also a sectoral perspective. And it would be great to be able to have you back on as well to see about how things are adapting over time as well.
Yes, because this is not a static sector. I mean, this is very much dynamic. We are working with humans. So this is a dynamic sector, and we need to put more effort into personalized medicine, into person-centered care. But to be able to deliver person-centered care, we must have a person-centered occupational how to say basis.
Person-centered occupation, yes, it goes from the individual first on both sides, not just the patient but also the practitioners. Yes.
Yeah. So, but healthcare is a fantastic sector. I welcome everybody into this lovely world, but there are some elements really needing emergent addressing. And as you say, we repeat the medical leadership that needs to be addressed.
Absolutely.
And we should, because it also goes into the leadership way of thinking. Are we on the right track? Am I doing the right things as a leader? And I think that unfortunately, sometimes when the needs to just do something are so big, it's easy to fall back into old tracks and to just do what we have always done. This is also something in medicine. This is kind of a classic way to solve things. But the thing is that we really need to think about it. We are in 2024. We should talk about modern leadership. And that means we also need to ask ourselves, are we having the right persons on the right places in leadership positions? Because if healthcare is running into a crisis, I really think we should take a look at the leadership.
Definitely. No, absolutely. I think these are very strong points. Well made. And Roosi, thank you very much indeed for coming on to be able to raise and highlight these vital topics. So thank you very much indeed.
I really thank you for having me on the podcast. I have had a great discussion, and I'm so much looking forward to continue the discussion.